Clint Eastwood stepped into Celeste, an upscale restaurant nestled in the heart of the city. He wore faded jeans, a time-worn jacket, and boots that had clearly seen years of road dust. The crystal chandeliers glittered above, casting their glow on polished marble and carefully arranged wine glasses, but Clint moved like a shadow, quiet and unassuming, selecting a discreet table near the edge of the room. He looked out of place, and he knew it. That was the point. Before he could so much as glance at the menu, a waitress appeared. Vanessa. Her posture was perfect, her uniform crisp, her expression less welcoming. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she asked with a raised brow, her tone syrupy with sarcasm. A faint disbelieving chuckle escaped her, loud enough to turn a few heads. The question hung in the air, cutting sharper than the clink of silverware. Celeste wasn't just a restaurant. It was a monument to luxury, an art gallery with foie gras instead of paintings. Outside, neon lights smeared across the windows while sports cars glided by in slow motion. Inside, every detail whispered exclusivity. Vanessa thrived in that world. One of Celeste's most seasoned servers, she prided herself on her precision. Hair in a tight bun, smile perfectly rationed, she moved through the dining room like a queen surveying her court. To her, working at Celeste was status. She told everyone that, but behind her flawless posture was a habit, a sharp instinct to judge. Clothes, posture, watch brand. She didn't need receipts to decide who belonged and who didn't. So when Clint Eastwood walked in wearing denim and dust, she didn't just notice. She assessed. He approached the host stand with quiet confidence. No entourage, no reservations, no apologies. Vanessa, midway through coordinating a VIP table, paused to size him up. Her eyes narrowed, her tone turned brittle. "Good evening," she said, the words stiff and insincere. "May I help you?" Clint looked her straight in the eyes, offering a soft, measured smile. "Just here for dinner," he said, voice low and steady. She blinked. "You do realize this is one of the most exclusive spots in the city, right?" "I do," he answered simply. Vanessa laughed once, a short, sharp note of disbelief. "Just a moment," she said, striding to the reception desk with a dramatic pivot. She punched his name into the reservation system with theatrical vigor. Nothing. She scowled, returned. "As I suspected, no reservation," she said flatly. "We do have some tables available, but let me be clear. This isn't a walk-in diner." Clint nodded, undeterred. "I'd still like to stay." She let out a slow sigh and snatched a menu with a flick of her wrist. "Fine, but I'll have to seat you somewhere more appropriate." With that, she led him briskly across the room, heels tapping like a countdown clock. Past velvet booths and candlelit nooks, all the way to the far corner. A cramped table. Beside the kitchen door where the clang of dishes drowned out the violinist in the lounge. She dropped the menu onto the table with a theatrical thud. "Here you go," she said, her voice artificially sweet. "This should be just right for you. Let me know if you need anything, within reason." Clint sat, unfazed. "Thank you," he said, his tone unbothered. "This'll do just fine, Esn." She walked off. She whispered to a couple nearby. "He'll be gone in 5 minutes. Wait till he sees the prices." But Clint didn't flinch. He flipped open the menu and studied it like a script, careful, calm, and entirely at ease. Wasn't there to prove a point? But something about him suggested he didn't need to. From across the room, Vanessa watched, a smirk on her lips and a certainty in her gut. He doesn't belong here, but she had no idea just who she was dealing with. Vanessa led Clint through the dining room with brisk, almost mechanical steps, deliberately skirting the tables bathed in golden light at the center. Instead, she guided him toward the dimmest, most tucked-away corner of the restaurant, just beside the kitchen. Here the soft hum of conversation gave way to the clatter of dishes and the muffled shuffle of staff, a world apart from the polished elegance enjoyed by Celeste's usual elite. "This table should do," she announced, her voice coated in feigned warmth as she carelessly dropped the menu onto the table with a dull thud. "I think you'll find it comfortable, more private." Clint offered a mild, composed smile. Thank you, he replied, unbothered as ever. Vanessa crossed her arms, studying him, unsure whether he was being sincere or sarcastic. You're welcome, she snapped, unable to mask the sarcasm that dripped from her voice. Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases, but since nothing's booked tonight, it's all yours. Before Clint could respond, she turned sharply and disappeared. When she returned moments later to take his order, her demeanor had cooled further. She flipped open her notepad with an exaggerated flourish and gave him a glance colder than the wine cellar. Have you decided? She asked, her tone heavy with disinterest. Or would you prefer a recommendation? Clint calmly tapped the menu. I'd like to try this one, please. Vanessa glanced down. Her lips twitched as she suppressed a laugh. Ah, the filet de Rossini, she said, her voice thick with condescension. A classic. Just to confirm, sir, you do know it's, 350? Clint met her gaze without flinching. Yes, it sounds wonderful. Her head tilted, smile tightening into something far less pleasant. Very well, she said with mock cheer. But I suggest you double-check the prices before the bill comes. Wouldn't want any unpleasant surprises. I'm certain, Clint replied, his tone as steady as ever. Irritated by his composure, Vanessa scribbled down his order with a dramatic sigh. As you wish, but be warned. Our chef prefers that dishes like these be appreciated by those with a taste for refined cuisine. I hope it meets your expectations. She spun on her heel, then paused, tossing one last barb over her shoulder. And one more thing, the minimum tip here is 20%. Keep that in mind while you enjoy. Clint remained unfazed, his expression unreadable as he glanced around the room. The piano played softly in the distance, lending the evening a quiet charm. He absorbed the ambiance with the calm of a man perfectly at peace. Moments later, Vanessa returned with his appetizer. She set the plate down with a thud, hard enough to make it slide an inch across the table. Here's your appetizer, she said, her smile twisting into a sneer. I hope you enjoy it. Or at least know what it is. Clint looked up, offered a nod. Thank you. Leaning in, Vanessa added, most people who order this end up hating it. It's not exactly mainstream, but I think you'll manage. Clint studied the dish, then looked back at her with the same calm serenity. It looks excellent. Thank you for your attention. Frustrated by his refusal to take the bait, Vanessa stalked off. As she passed a coworker, she muttered, He won't make it to the main course. He'll be asking for the check before he sees the total. Meanwhile, Clint took his time with the appetizer, savoring each bite with quiet grace. Across the dining room, Vanessa watched from a distance, still, clinging to her smug certainty. His calm demeanor, she believed, was a cover for impending panic. These types always ask for tap water next, she whispered to another server, who shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. At a nearby table, an elderly gentleman in a navy suit, with snow-white hair, raised his wineglass toward Clint in a silent toast. Clint returned the gesture with a small, knowing smile, one that said the night was just beginning. But Vanessa's disdain had already begun to deepen into something darker. Rather than sending Clint's order to the kitchen promptly, she made a calculated decision. A lesson, she told herself. She prioritized everyone else. She lingered at a VIP table, laughing too hard at an unfunny joke. She dropped off drinks at a table that wasn't hers. She even paused to compliment a woman's earrings, anything to delay Clint's service. And through it all, Clint waited, unhurried. He watched her with the same detached interest one might have for a street performer. Every step she took, every cold glance she cast his way, failed to rattle him. And that made her furious. Vanessa kept her eyes averted, feigning absorption in trivial tasks, her every movement carefully calculated to avoid Clint's table. After what felt like an interminable wait, the soft shuffle of shoes broke the lull. Milton, the kindly gentleman, from the neighboring table stepped over. "Good evening, young man," he said warmly, his voice low and gentle. "I couldn't help but notice you've been somewhat neglected." Clint looked up with his usual serene composure, Good evening, but truly there's no need for concern. Milton chuckled, leaning in slightly, a conspiratorial kindness in his tone. Sometimes being treated this way tests our patience, but maintaining grace under pressure, that's real strength. Before Clint could respond, Vanessa reappeared, sharp and sudden. "Sir, is there something I can help you with?" Her voice was smooth but laced with authority, polished to perfection yet unmistakably intrusive. Milton turned, his demeanor unshaken. "No, miss. I was simply offering a greeting. It's rare to meet someone so composed." Vanessa sighed theatrically, waving her hand as if brushing away a fly. "Perhaps you'd prefer to return to your own table and enjoy your meal." Clint said nothing, simply observing, his gaze calm and analytical, as if cataloging behavior rather than reacting to it. Eventually, Vanessa returned with his main course, though not without making him wait. She had lingered in the kitchen, laughing too long with the chefs, leaving the dish under a warming lamp. She had even taken time to serve other tables first, her every delay designed to punish. When she finally approached, it was with brusque efficiency. She placed the plate down with little care. "Here's your order." "I hope you enjoy it," she said, the smile on her lips nothing but a sneer. Then, as if twisting the knife, "If it's not to your taste, we can always adjust to something more affordable." Clint offered a gentle nod. "Thank you, it looks excellent." His steady tone, utterly void of sarcasm or offense, only deepened Vanessa's frustration. She stalked off toward the bar where she vented to a coworker. "He's faking it," she hissed. "All that calm? It's just a front. You can see how uncomfortable he is. He probably doesn't even know what he ordered." Her coworker shifted uneasily. "Maybe he just wants to enjoy his dinner." Vanessa stared at her, scandalized. As if he could be treated like any regular customer? "Did you see the boots he's wearing? He doesn't belong here. If he can't handle that, he shouldn't have walked through the door." At a nearby table, a couple exchanged whispers as they watched the interaction unfold. "She's awful," the woman murmured. "He's been nothing but polite, and she keeps trying to humiliate him. It's disgraceful." The man nodded, frowning. "We should mention this to the manager." Clint, meanwhile, continued his meal with quiet dignity, fully aware of the sympathetic glances being cast his way. When Vanessa returned to clear the plate, her disdain was palpable. "So," she said, forcing brightness into her tone, "did it meet your expectations?" Clint looked up, his eyes steady. "It was excellent. Please give my compliments to the chef. They did an impeccable job." Vanessa's expression flickered. Surprise, frustration, disbelief. But she quickly masked it. As she turned away, she muttered beneath her breath, "Let's see if he's still smiling when he sees the bill." Clint, now seated quietly with his coffee, exuded a quiet authority that no amount of condescension could chip away. Vanessa, still determined to break him, raised her voice just enough for nearby tables to hear. "It's hard to maintain standards," she said to a colleague, glancing in Clint's direction, "when just anyone thinks they can walk in." Her colleague tried to redirect the conversation, but Vanessa pushed on. "That's why we have a reservations policy, to prevent situations like this." A ripple of disapproval moved through the room. Whispers rose like wind. Frowns formed. At one table, a well-dressed woman gasped softly, placing a hand to her chest. "She's humiliating him on purpose," she said. "This is outrageous." An elderly gentleman nearby shook his head. "It's gone too far." Clint sat serenely, surveying the room with quiet detachment. No irritation, no anger. Just a calm, unsettling presence that only made Vanessa's nerves fray further. "He must be someone important," whispered a refined woman to her companion 2 tables ahead. "No one else would stay so composed. Or maybe," she added thoughtfully, "he's just stronger than she thinks." Driven now more by obsession than irritation, Vanessa made her way back to Clint's table, past the eyes watching her every step. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked, her tone sweetened with poisonous sarcasm. "I do hope you're enjoying your experience. It's always interesting to have such unique clientele. It adds a certain charm to the atmosphere," Vanessa said, her tone thinly veiled. Clint looked up, meeting her eyes with calm intensity. Could you explain what you mean by that? A nervous laugh slipped from her lips as she tried to recover. Oh, don't take it the wrong way. It's just that, well, our clientele usually has a more traditional profile. It's rare to see someone with your style here. The room quieted. Nearby diners leaned in subtly, the air thick with tension. Vanessa, mistaking the attention for approval, straightened, convinced she had the upper hand. Clint held her gaze for a long moment, then spoke, his tone even, but unmistakably firm. You're right, he said. Maybe I should handle this differently. Before she could respond, a shift rippled through the room. The restaurant manager, a poised, middle-aged man in a tailored suit, appeared at the edge of the scene. His eyes swept the space, instantly, assessing the atmosphere before locking onto Clint. His expression changed immediately, concern laced with urgency. Mr. Eastwood, he said, hastening over. I wasn't aware you were joining us this evening. Please, how may I assist you? Vanessa froze. Her smug confidence dissolved as she looked between the manager and Clint, confusion dawning into dread. Clint turned to her, his voice composed, yet unmistakably authoritative. Let's talk, he said, about how we treat people. The silence that followed was absolute. Every conversation in the dining room ceased. The manager, visibly rattled, ignored Vanessa entirely as he addressed Clint with deep respect. Mr. Eastwood, please accept my sincerest apologies for what has occurred. It is an honor to have you here. Tell me how I can make this right. Clint offered a gentle shake of his head. There's no need for apologies. I would just like a short conversation with your staff after the service, if that's acceptable. The manager's expression grew somber, understanding the weight of the moment. He turned to Vanessa, his voice stern and unyielding. Vanessa, he said sharply, I expect a full explanation of your behavior at the end of your shift. Now, step aside. I'll be taking over this table. Vanessa opened her mouth, fumbling for words. I didn't know. I thought. Her voice faltered. The silence around her said enough. Clint's voice cut through gently but firmly. I never said who I was. Never implied I should be treated any differently. Everyone who walks through these doors deserves respect, regardless of how they look. Gasps and murmurs spread through the dining room like a sudden breeze. Recognition flickered in faces across the room. Word spread. Clint wasn't just a guest. He was one of the restaurant's owners. A couple nearby exchanged a knowing smile. The elderly man at the corner table gave a nod of approval. Around the room, conversations shifted. More hushed now, more thoughtful. I always sensed something different about him. One man whispered to his wife. His wife nodded. His presence. It's undeniable. I hope this teaches everyone. Hear what real grace looks like, she added softly. The manager turned back to Vanessa, his tone final. You may explain yourself later, but for now, please step away. Pale and shaken, Vanessa didn't argue. Her heels clicked against the floor as she retreated, her head bowed. Clint stood slowly, his presence commanding without effort. Looked out across the room, meeting the eyes of those who had been silently watching. This restaurant was founded on a principle, he began, his voice calm, deliberate. That everyone is welcome. That we see the person, not the surface. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Tonight we fell short of that principle, but it's never too late to do better. Let this be a moment of learning, for all of us. The manager nodded gravely, visibly moved. I'll speak with the team after service, he promised. We'll ensure that Celeste lives up to its name from this day forward. Clint sat again, and the restaurant gradually resumed its rhythm. Though the energy had changed, conversations continued, but with quieter tones, more measured words. Later that evening, with the last guests gone and the staff gathered, Clint once more addressed the room. His presence was no less imposing, yet filled with compassion. We all make mistakes, he said, his tone steady. What matters is how we respond. Tonight we saw the harm that comes from snap judgments, hidden biases, and forgetting our shared humanity. The staff listened in silence, many with downcast eyes, some ashamed, others inspired. Clint looked out over the gathered staff, his gaze steady, his voice quiet but unwavering. I urge each of you to reflect on what happened tonight. Every person who walks through our doors carries inherent worth, regardless of appearance, background, or circumstance. He paused, letting the silence hold his words in the air. Now imagine what this place could be if we chose kindness over judgment. Sometimes the smallest gesture, a smile, a word, a second glance, can change the course of someone's day or their life. He stepped forward slightly, the sincerity in his voice undeniable. I challenge you to look past the surface. 2. Treat every individual who enters not just as a customer, but as a person who matters. That is the true strength of our community. Some staff members shifted where they stood, visibly affected. Others remained quiet, lost in thought. The mood had changed, not from shame but reflection. Then from the back of the group, Vanessa slowly raised her eyes, brimming with tears. I didn't realize, she whispered, her voice trembling. I was so focused on preserving the image of the restaurant. I forgot that people are the heart of it. I promise I'll change. Clint gave her a soft, encouraging smile. That promise, he said gently, is one you have to make to yourself. True change doesn't come from pressure. It comes from within. And if you ever need help remembering what kindness looks like, I'll be here. He looked around the room once more, his voice deepening with quiet conviction. Kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about the everyday choices, the quiet, unseen acts that remind people they're not invisible. Let's build a space where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. He took a breath, the room hanging on his final words. After all, in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. The team stood still, moved. Heads nodded in solemn agreement. A nearby server spoke up, voice soft but certain. We'll work together to make sure Celeste reflects those values every day. Clint offered a final nod of gratitude, then turned toward the door. Outside, the city lights sparkled against the pavement. He stepped out into the cool night, pausing briefly on the sidewalk. Turning back, he looked once more at the restaurant's warm golden glow. A quiet smile played at the corners of his mouth. Tonight wasn't about a reservation gone wrong. It wasn't even about him. It was about a reminder, one easily forgotten, that even in the smallest moments, we have the power to inspire transformation through kindness. As Clint walked down the quiet, lamplit street, one final thought lingered in his mind. In a world where you can choose to be anything, true strength is not in judgment but in acceptance. And it's in the small, deliberate choices we make each day that we shape not only the world around us, but who we are. For those who find hope in stories like this, of compassion, change, and quiet courage, there are many more waiting to be discovered, just one click away.